Today's modern working professionals expect a learning experience that reflects the world we live in. Canvas LMS is built to help organizations unlock the potential of skills-based learning by focusing on what matters to learners and their educators. From dynamic course delivery to adaptable credentialing, Canvas empowers learners to thrive in a rapidly evolving landscape. See what it's all about at canvas.com.
Welcome to The Accidental Trainer, a podcast where you'll hear firsthand stories and tips on how to start and grow your training career.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ATD Accidental Trainer Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandria Clapp, and today we have with us Connie Malamed. Connie is the author of the popular e-learning coach website and a podcast, a learning design consultant, and more. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to chat with you. Let me prime our topic a little bit. L&D professionals are often behind the scenes, but maybe they're staying there too long and that can hold them back. So today, Connie is going to chat with us about how to gain visibility by contributing meaningfully to the field, not just promoting yourself. And whether you're a trainer, a designer, a manager, we're going to discuss some actionable ways to build credibility, connect with others, and share your impact. First, can you tell us more about you, Connie? How did you land in your current role? What was accidental in your journey?
You know what's funny? I think I might be the only person who was not accidental. I was teaching little kids, making materials for reading and math, and I loved doing it so much. I kept wondering, is there a field, is there a career where you can do that all day long? And when I moved to Austin, I got a contract with a publisher, and I was designing little workbooks for little kids, like first and second graders. And it was so much fun. I couldn't believe it. Then I went to get a job at a computer lab. And on my interview, the boss said, I'm getting my PhD in instructional design. And that's the first time I heard those two words together. And I knew what it meant, unlike most people who think that you're an interior designer. I went, what? There's a program in that? And then I just immediately applied and did the thing. And my boss made me take notes when she cut class because we had some similar classes.
Wow. So nothing accidental along the way to how you're now a consultant working on your own?
Well, every day is accidental if you want to look at it that way. You're always growing, changing, and learning from things that you never thought would happen. I never thought I would speak in public. I never thought I would write a blog. I was just happy to be behind the scenes. So yes, even the name, the e-learning coach, I don't even know how I picked that out. So a lot of kind of accidental things happen all the time. It's always surprising how much you grow from teaching and talking to other people. That's always been a surprise to me.
Yeah, that's a nice segue into what we're going to chat about, which is exactly that, sharing with others. And maybe a nice place to start is the visibility gap. A lot of folks, you and I were chatting about this, in the L&D world feel maybe invisible outside their organizations. Or maybe they don't even feel invisible, but people don't realize the amazing work they're doing. Why do you think that is?
I think that's really true. And in my discussions with people about this, some people feel invisible within their organizations. They're not being recognized. So it's both, which I had been focused on outside, but it's good to know that a lot of people are feeling that way at work. I think some of the reason has to do with organizations not, being good at recognizing and developing people. But I don't focus on that simply because I don't know how to change that. But what I can help people with is that personal visibility. I've been researching this for a while. I've been pretty focused on it. And I think there's this gap for quite a few reasons. One is people think that the only way you can be visible is by self-promoting. And a lot of people think that that's just bragging and they don't want to partake in it. Another thing is a lot of very established, competent people feel like a fraud. They don't feel like they deserve to be recognized. It was in the 70s, I believe, that two people came up with the term imposter syndrome in an article. And it's basically competent people feeling as though they're a fraud. Another reason is people just don't know how to go about doing it. There are these different strategies that you find out by experimenting that work and reading about it that work. Some do, some don't. It just depends on who, what, why, where. Those are probably the three top ones I found, but there are others too. There's just a lot of psychological barriers. Many people, if not all humans, have that little voice in their head that's like, you're not good enough. You can't do that, and you just have to ignore that voice. I don't know if you'll ever stop it, but learning to ignore it is a great idea.
Okay, so you've mentioned three kind of big common patterns or reasons that keep people back from stepping into the spotlight. Not interested in self-promotion, this feeling of fraud, imposter phenomenon, and just don't have the know-how. So I want to kind of peel back the curtain on each one of those and tug the string a little. Let's start with the icky feeling of I don't want to be self-promotional. It just feels so out of character for me and my values. And especially maybe if nowadays you're just turned off by social media and so many influencers, people out there doing the kind of self-promotion that you definitely don't want to do. How can you help people rethink and redefine what that visibility is? You've talked to me about this, about kind of looking at instead of it as self-promotion, but contribution, and you're serving others.
Yeah, I think that is key. It's somewhat of a paradox that the more you help and serve, the more visible you may become, but that's not necessarily your reason for doing it. It's kind of a perfect world in the same way that helping others makes us feel good. Imagine if helping others made us feel bad. It would be a horrible world. We're lucky that helping others makes us feel good. And in the end, it probably will make you more visible. The way to do that is to sincerely serve. Here are just a few examples. If you're on LinkedIn and you kind of feel like you want to help people, but you may not want to self-promote. Well, one thing is you can just simply find an article that you've read recently or a book, post a link to it, and explain why you liked it and what touched you. I just did that the other day for a really interesting and nerdy article about metaphors. And then all these smart people are responding and adding to that contribution. It was just great, and I didn't write the article, but it struck me as very intelligent. So I wanted to share it with people. That's a way to share, help, and you're not self-promoting at all. Another is to just reflect. I wonder if people, this is an example, should first learn how to write well before they use AI to write. What do you think? Just put your idea out there. And you might have some people who argue and say, absolutely not. And you may have people go, I totally agree. And it doesn't matter. That's great. The more opinions, the better. There's no need to debate or argue, as far as I'm concerned. I never do that. I save arguments for the people I love.
Yeah.
My family.
That could be a whole conversation. The folks that are combative for some reason in some of these social forums. But I like that you mentioned reflection as an option or as a way to think about sharing what you're consuming, what you're reading and finding interesting, because not everyone identifies as a writer or they feel a vulnerability and maybe they're just out of practice to share from their perspective. Like it's a muscle. And even if you're writing in one context, technical curriculum writing for your training role, I'm trying to imagine some folks who maybe, yes, I am doing writing in my role, but never about this other type of thing that can be intimidating. Not to mention, I don't know, what are all the excuses that people are going to say? I don't have time. Someone else already shared this. It's not worth me sharing. I'm just like adding more noise to the pile. What do you say to all those things?
Well, first of all, it is everyone's prerogative. If they really don't want to, then they shouldn't. But if you're sharing something that's helpful or that opens people's minds, it's not noise. I think be sure to only share things that are valuable and worthwhile. A reflection, every once in a while, I'm just surprised when someone said, that's exactly what I needed today. Even if you only got one response, it just makes you feel so good that you helped someone out that day with just what they needed. Another thing that you can do is just comment on what someone else is writing. Yesterday, someone on LinkedIn was writing that she was collecting little small AI tools that people are writing with help, coding help. And I just thought it was so great that she was doing that. She's creating a collection of L&D tools that people are contributing to the community. That's a real service. And I just like to say, thank you for doing this. It's amazing, and that's it.
Yeah. I mentioned to you that I feel so fortunate in my role, and it's one of my favorite things in the whole world is to be able to hear from our community what they're doing and when they share something with someone else. At our conference in May, we were having a community conversation and someone shared something and it was almost like advice that he was giving her for her consultancy practice, even though the topic was somewhat unrelated. We were talking about intelligent failure and like fail jams. And she said to him, that made this whole conference for me. Sometimes you can't put a price on it. Like finding a peer, finding someone who you're sharing something about your work or your challenge, and they just happen to be like the right person that you're talking to and know exactly what you're doing or have an idea for you or a resource. I mean, I think it can be isolating. You forget in any role, not just L&D, in any role, that there's folks who are doing like the exact same thing as you, same struggles. And I think contributing to the community and finding places to share is a way to bring to the surface those people who are your peers. And from the ATD perspective, I sit on the content team. So we're always encouraging, we always want to hear new voices in our blogs. And that's a great kind of low stakes way to start. You don't have to write a big book or speak on a conference stage. Like you can write a blog about an idea. Maybe it's something you're doing. Maybe it's a challenge. You probably actually could walk us through all of the learning benefits of why sharing out loud, getting something out, whether you're talking it, writing it, is sense making, you're building stronger connections, you're moving your way maybe towards mastery or better understanding of whatever the concept is. So there's a million reasons why it's worth it. And there's so many outlets at ATD to start doing that, whether it's a blog, whether it's magazine, whether it's a video or podcast idea, speaking at a conference, maybe speaking on a webinar, panel or something. We have a lot of options.
That's great. And that's true. I'd like to mention in terms of speaking that I was petrified. I mean, having panic attacks before I spoke. The very first conference I spoke at years ago, they told me basically, the reviews were so bad, they told me not to come back. I wasn't interested in speaking. I just did it so I could take my family to Disney World because, work paid for the hotel and the flight. Over time, I decided I did want to speak when I started writing books. And I had to go to Toastmasters for 1 year just to get over the fear. And I remember saying to someone, how does speaking to 10 people in your neighborhood allow you to get over the fear of speaking to 100 or 200 people? And the person said to me, I don't know, but it does. And if you go to Toastmasters and give all 10 speeches that they, require, I don't know, it just works. So I just want people to know that. But the other thing is, when you are nervous, which I do get nervous, you just remind yourself, this isn't about you. You're there to help others. And that can really be the greatest motivating factor. So I just want everyone to know it. Not everyone is born a fantastic public speaker who you see speak. It's an ongoing, just like writing, just like designing. You get better at it throughout your life. It's not like, oh, I'm an expert now.
To sort of build on that concept of not everyone has to be all of the things. So maybe the way that you contribute, you feel more comfortable in a speaking setting versus a writing setting, or vice versa, or even the difference between long form writing and short form. There's folks who are really prolific at the short form and can share things in small posts, but taking that next step maybe to longer form is like a different skill set and different style. So if you have a preference or just knowing like a place to start, maybe that's easier.
One thing I wanted to say also is we're focused on people who are hesitant to be visible, more visible. But there's this whole other segment of people who are kind of midway and partway there. And I would love to talk about a few strategies for them because they're on their way.
Yeah, sure.
So for people who are already established and on their way, here are just a few simple strategies because you're already past that. I know I'm not self-promoting. I know I'm serving others. I know I'm helping others because I get good feedback and I'd like to do more. One thing that I did, I might have done it in January, is I heard someone else talk about this 30 days of writing about your favorite topic, like on LinkedIn or whatever platform you like. So I did 30 days of visual design. You would think that I would have planned it out, but no, every morning I struggled to come up with what I wanted to say. But it was so much fun. I want to do another one. Maybe I'll do it on visibility. But I got so much feedback and, people always add smart comments and they add value and I learn while they're learning. It was just such a great experience. I wanted to tell people that if you're feeling confident, try a 30-day content series. Another idea is if you don't want to have a podcast, which I can tell you from experience, takes a lot of time when you're working alone to edit and find the speakers, write the questions, read their materials. You can try to talk to people about podcast guesting, people you know. That's another approach. And another one is when you're like kind of midway, but you're not sure, find someone with a similar interest and collaborate with them. So you can do a webinar together, you can write an article together, and that takes some of the pressure off. Because people fear criticism. First of all, you have to stop fearing criticism. You have to not care so much. Of course, we all do. Everyone who writes a book goes and looks at that 1-star review or 2-star review and feels defeated, even though they had 30 great reviews. Collaborating with someone takes the pressure off and you get to meet someone new and work with them. That's a great way to get to know people. So those are a few ideas for people who are already on their way.
I love it. At first, when you were giving the 30-day challenge idea, I was thinking, okay, and you can modify it to 2 days, 5 days, if that seems really scary. But then I also thought about how 30 days actually could be a really great challenge because it's sort of really pushes you out of your comfort zone. But it makes me think about a lot of what great content creators talk about, putting videos out there. If they force themselves to do something almost every day, it's like retrieval practice. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. And if you're willing to sort of lower the bar for yourself, that you get better the more you do it. And the more repetitions that you put in. So if you're only putting yourself on the hook to I'm going to do it 3 times, then you can really agonize over those 3 times where you can't do the same thing. You don't have the same time bandwidth to do that if you're putting yourself on the hook to do it 30 days in a row. So now I'm talking myself back into that's a great strategy.
Now, I think 15 days would also tax you in that same way. So
Yeah.
whatever number you love, go for it.
Of course. I mean, these are all just ideas for sure. I'm just trying to make a case for why it would be good to go for the 30. Love the idea about collaborating for sure. That always makes literally anything in life less scary.
True. Something you said reminded me of a great book I'm reading called Tiny Experiments.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Tell us more.
She's so good. And she's also done this really interesting research. But anyway, Tiny Experiments is about not making goals for yourself, but observing, seeing maybe where you have a fear. I love trying to conquer my fears because almost everything I've done in public, I had to do that. And it just makes you feel so good. And it makes life so much fun. Observe yourself, find, what you don't really feel like doing, like a 30-day thing, and just learn from it and say, I'm going to do this for 30 days and see what I learn about it. She has the example, I'm going to meditate for a week, not start a new habit. She mentioned make a YouTube video once a week for several months and see how I feel. She didn't like it, so that was the end of her. She experimented, she learned. And then she has this little chart that you make, a plus what went well, a minus what you didn't like, and then next. And the next might be, I'm not going to be a YouTube person. Or the next might be, I love this. I plan to do this for, the next year. But rather than making goals or trying to develop habits, just do these little tiny experiments. It's a great way to work on your visibility.
And I could see our listeners in this community getting so creative and crafty with that because they create these experiences for their organization for all sorts of things. So kind of treating it as your own little learning experience, experiment, and creating reflections around that and even sharing them out loud. I think of some of the folks who are just so great at sharing out loud what they're working on, even if it's not a finished, polished product, sharing a sticking point or a challenge or where they're stuck or they're using this tool. I think sometimes people don't even think of that as you're building credibility and presence by saying, I'm in the middle of this workflow. This is my sticking point in Rise, whatever it is, film gap. And what is a hack? What is a workaround? What is someone else doing? You will again start to find people who know or who don't know who hop into that conversation, I think, really quickly. And that is really fun to kind of see those like organic conversations take place.
That's a great one. And another version of that is I just figured out how to do this in Rise. I'm using this plugin. How do you do it?
Yes.
Oh, I did it. How do you do it? I mean, it's just great. I mean, I adore the people in our field. I mean, I know you do too. I can tell. Smart, creative, it's just the greatest people ever. So
yeah, I've told you it's just one of the best things to be able to chat with folks at our conferences, wherever we get the opportunity, and just hear the work that you all are doing. You all inspire and amaze me. So we want to hear what you're up to. And chances are, so do your peers, and they want to steal your ideas and collaborate with you and riff off of them. And yeah, definitely. So what do you think are consequences for folks not sharing their work? And not to sound doom and gloom, but what's happening if we're not sharing with each other?
Something I have to remind myself when I feel hesitant, it can be, and I don't want to put people down, but if you're not sharing, you're kind of holding back or, hoarding your knowledge. And I'm not putting anyone down who doesn't share. It's okay. It may not be for you. But I think that's a good way to look at it. Like, well, and I have to do that too. Like, well, what happens if you don't share that? Look at all the people that might be missing out on this. So that's one thing. But then the other thing, you won't have as many adventures and opportunities probably, at least through your career path. There are other ways to have adventures and opportunities, absolutely. But if you're looking for more opportunities and adventures through work, you may miss out on that if you're not more visible. The other thing is, sometimes it's people are in organizations where it's hard to break into, a leadership role if that's what you want, either because of biases or, there's a structure there that you don't fit into where you're a little bit different. But by being visible and showing that you can be a leader, you may just get into the role that you want. So when you hold back, you may be holding back your career too. You can't be certain, but it's more likely that you'll be held back in your career.
I'm trying to think of the way to say this, and you can help guide us. I'm thinking about the social impact because we're such social beings. I always have this fascination with social learning and just what that means for our organizational cultures, especially now that we're living in the age of AI and our roles and just work in general. The world is really shifting with how we collaborate with AI and AI systems and with each other. And you mentioned holding back on knowledge sharing. I feel like I just read something recently that we're better as people at making decisions as a group with each other. I don't know, there's something that is found and understood in a different, unique way as a group when you're tapping into your community than if you're going after it alone. So I feel like there must be some negative consequence there.
Well, it's interesting. I did read some research about that group learning. Like if you're having a pre-conference workshop and you have people work in small teams, you're sharing the cognitive load.
Yes.
Don't just have one limited working memory. You have 5 limited working memories. And of course, everyone's experience gives them a different perspective. When I have taught design thinking pre-conference workshops like at ATD, the energy in the room when we do this small group work is palpable. It's just so exciting. Whereas when I do a visual design course, You can try to do a project together, but that's not where you do visual design. You typically do it, alone at your computer and then ask people for some feedback. And as much as I love teaching visual design and letting people do hands-on work, the small group interactions in design thinking are just amazing. The energy that gets built is so great. So maybe people just really do enjoy reducing their cognitive load.
Yeah. I love that example. That's perfect. Okay, let's end on a good action note for folks. What's one small shift you'd recommend to someone listening who wants to show up a little more this year, whether it's online, at work, somehow in the broader L&D field? What you got?
Okay. Well, at work, there are just little things you can do. Speak up more at meetings, summarize the notes and hand them to people, write in the company newsletter, break down silos, have a lunch and learn and get people from other parts of the organization. Just little things, and that's a great way to practice stepping out. Now, some people have stepped out socially, but they haven't done it at work. It's really funny how sometimes it's flipped. But I always think of work as kind of like the practice. And when you're in public, find your platform, what you like to do, video, YouTube, audio, writing. Let's just take LinkedIn. You can write 3 or 4 short bullet points, something that you're thinking about. I guess my advice is try to ignore the little mean girl or mean boy or bully in your head and just ignore it and pretend it's not there and just go for what you want. Take action.
I love it. And you have a resource for folks if they want to practice. You want to mention something about that?
After speaking to a lot of people in my community, I realized this was going on and I made an 8-lesson course. It's free. It's an email course. Everyone's so busy. It takes about 5 minutes to read each lesson. And it's at the elearningcoach.com/visibility. That's where you can get it.
Awesome. Well, I hope folks take advantage of that and give Connie some feedback on this free resource that she's created for you all. Definitely check it out. Before we close out for today, will you tell us how are you currently learning and getting out of your comfort zone?
Right now, I'm reading quite a few books, which are not getting me out of my comfort zone. I would say that running a community, it's a membership community, is always getting me out of my comfort zone because just things constantly come up that I wasn't prepared for and didn't know would happen. So just my general work does it.
That's great. I'm glad that you're getting pushed and growing in those ways. Well, thank you so much, Connie. If our listeners don't know you already, we are going to be sharing your website and blog resources in our show notes. Connie is a great resource for anything instructional design and e-learning. And hopefully you have found some great tips from Connie today.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
Thanks. Thank you to our sponsor, Canvas by Instructure.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from the Association for Talent Development. Be sure to check the show notes for resources mentioned in today's episode. And if you found the show useful or insightful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague.